This is Ahval Online, meeting point of accurate news and free comment on the current affairs of Turkey. Welcome to our podcast series.
Ahval News, today we are speaking to Mr. Yavuz Aydın, who specializes as a human rights lawyer. He graduated from Ankara University Law Faculty and completed his master's degree in the UK on EU law and European human rights law. He also used to work as a counselor for the Justice at Permanent Delegation of Turkey to the EU. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's our pleasure. So today we will speak to him about the rather horrific state of prisons in Turkey during this COVID-19 period. So, Mr. Aydın, you wrote in a recently published article that there were to be reforms that would release several inmates from Turkish prisons at this time. Can you elaborate on this reform, and do you think it will come into effect anytime soon?
So there was already a so-called reform, which was draft maybe, but I didn't see anyone who saw this draft. The Ministry of Justice and the government called this preparation as the second reform package. So this was supposed to include some provisions to release some inmates from the prisons, because the main motivation for this was that the prisons in Turkey are extremely overcrowded. And they were already working on it, but since there is a de facto coalition between the nationalists and this AKP, what we understood from the media and what we heard from the other lawyers and colleagues here in Turkey is that there wasn't a consensus about the content of this law. But now this coronavirus and this outbreak made it an urgent issue to pass this law, which is to be called as reform, but we don't know the content exactly. There are reports, again, leaked informally, most probably by the government, but there are two different scenarios as far as we see, but in both of these scenarios, there are some shortcomings, but we will wait and see maybe next week.
What are the two scenarios?
In the first scenario, there is one group excluded from this package.
Right.
That one group is the ones who are charged with terrorism-related crimes. The number of people who are kept behind bars with this reason amounts more than 50,000, at least 50,000 as of now. So they think this would create a reaction among Turkish people, among the society. So they don't want to release these people, because in the eyes of these AKP people or the MHP people, and even in the eyes of many of these CHP people, these people are terrorists, except for some names, which changes from party to party. But the second scenario is, in addition to terrorism-related charges, excluding this drug-related charges and sexual offenses. So we will see. In the end, there's no third scenario which includes all people, all the inmates, in my opinion, which should be the case, but we didn't hear such a scenario yet.
I mean, it's also very complicated because Turkey is famous for imprisoning journalists and business people and philanthropists and people who work like in high positions in the legal department. Will this reform be effective to them? I mean, does it talk about them?
Yeah, so that's the point actually. So if in both scenarios, if there won't be a third scenario, which should be the case, as I said, in both scenarios on the table, we will not see these people released or freed. And we are talking about, namely, we are talking about people like Osman Kavala, people like Figen Yüksekdağ and Selahattin Demirtaş, the co-chairs of HDP party. And we are talking about Ahmet Altan. We are talking about many others, journalists or writers or lawyers, human rights defenders. The thing is, when we talk about terror, people in Turkey and Turkish politicians understand this so-called FETÖ terrorists, in between brackets, I mean. So even talking about these people, we are not talking about 30,000 soldiers or 30,000 prosecutors or 30,000 police officers. Right. Most of these people are ordinary people we are talking about. So not only the famous ones, those who don't have names anywhere are also innocent people in my eyes. Be it PKK, most of people who are in jail for being a member of PKK, or so-called FETÖ, or so-called other terrorist organizations. But most of them are really the people who shouldn't be there normally, because coming from the profession, I know how it works, how people are being put in jail.
Okay, I mean, now I have a new question, but as I was actually going to back to something earlier that you said. How would one define a terror crime exactly?
Yeah.
Or a terror charge? Like, does it just mean being associated to a group that the government doesn't like?
Yeah. So that's the problem in Turkey, actually. And to us, that's a problem, but to the government, that has been the perfect pretext to intimidate the dissidents and to suppress the people for their repression policies. This is the perfect tool to use. These vagueness in Turkish legislation about these terror crimes. So this has been criticized in many international reports drafted by many different institutions, including Venice Commission of the Council of Europe, the European Commission of the EU, in almost in all the reports starting from 2000 or even 1999, in all reports every year, EU Commission stressed this issue because this was the most problematic thing in Turkey. So my dream when I was working for Turkish Justice Ministry and for this Turkish representation to the EU here, believe me, my first priority and my dream was really getting rid of this vague legislation which is used to silence and intimidate the dissidents, and to have a proper terror legislation which was compatible to the EU. It was important in many different aspects to have proper mutual legal assistance with EU countries and to have exchange of information in many different areas. That was the key issue. Not only, not only about freedom of expression or other things, but for many reasons, this was my first priority, and there were people who thought in the same way, but now they are all in jail or, like me, in exile.
Well, I hope your dream comes true.
Yeah, hopefully. One day, I believe it will come true one day.
Because in your report you mentioned that Turkey has been downgraded to a monetary status.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe in April 2017. During the assembly meeting, after so many warnings to Turkey and Turkish government, for the first time in the history of the Council of Europe, a country has been downgraded to monitoring status after many years. So Turkey, having met this famous Copenhagen criteria, was accepted to be seen as a candidate country to start this screening process and this negotiation process with the EU. So since then, Turkey was out of this monitoring status in the Council of Europe, Strasbourg-based Council of Europe, which Turkey is a founding member. So for the first time in the Council of Europe history, a country, after promoting to another league, being out of this monitoring status, for the first time, a country has been downgraded again, and that's Turkey. So we have this championship thanks to this government also. And the reason for this was the deficiencies in human rights and democracy-related issues, about this corruption issues, about the advices of Greco and Manival, and from the Turkey's track record in human rights area. So those were the reasons for Turkey to be downgraded. And since then, for more than 2 years now, Turkey is still in this monitoring process, together with whom? Azerbaijan, Ukraine, and who else? Armenia. To the best of my knowledge, there is Serbia also, and Moldova. These are the ones I remember. So and with Russia also, of course. From among all these 47 members of Council of Europe, we are together with these countries now.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about the state of the prisons today, this week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the overcrowdedness was already an issue before the COVID-19, and now
yeah.
And now they're moving people out of their cells and moving them all into one cell. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Normally, even according to the formal statements by the authorities of Ministry of Justice, the normal capacity of Turkish prisons as of today is not more than 110,000 normal capacity. So in recent years, the Ministry of Justice extended the capacity by some infrastructure and some other modification stuff. And now the extended capacity is 220,000 normally. But now we are talking about 3,000 inmates as a sum of convicts and detainees in remand. So that means there are at least 80,000 people extra on the top of this extended capacity.
Yeah.
So this was always the case since 15th of July 2016. And it would be worse if some convicts of theft, homicide, or fraud wouldn't have been released in November 2016. So the government released 40,000 convicts who were convicted for fraud, homicide, theft, or such things, to open some space for the terrorists of the new trend. So even after that move, this is the picture. And as the Interior Affairs Minister, Süleyman Soylu, he was replying to a question in the parliament. It was, as far as I remember, December 2019, last December. He said the number of people detained only after July 2016, only because of this FETÖ allegations, the number of people detained exceeded 261,000. And out of this number, 91,000 were arrested. That means, detention by the prosecutors for up to 30 days by then. Then it was decreased to 2 weeks, then 7 days. So, but out of this number, those who were arrested only because of this reason was 91,000. And it's not only this people. They are still arresting, HDP people, within a pretext of PKK, and they are arresting human rights defenders or journalists from different spectrum with different reasons. Only the names of the organizations they are affiliated to, they are shown to be affiliated to on papers change, but the procedure and the attitude is always the same.
Yeah, it hasn't. One thing that caught my eye about, I don't know if this is prisons all over in Turkey, but you mentioned that they were clearing out some cells to keep them for people who have been infected. So now a cell, and that they've been making inmates share cells. Now a cell that normally holds up to 7 people has 45 people. In it.
There are different NGOs working on this issue, and they are making statements. They are warning many people, but in Turkey, these warnings are falling to deaf ears. But there is this Ömer Faruk Gergerlioğlu. I'm a big fan of him. And there is Sezgin Tanrıkulu. He's also a great human rights campaigner. These are the ones who are mainly raising these issues on the agenda. So as a member of this human rights subcommittee in the Turkish parliament also, Ömer Faruk Gergerlioğlu has raised this issue recently. So he is receiving many complaints about this and implications. As far as I understand, formally and informally. So in another podcast with Ahval 3 days ago, he disclosed this. And he also said such allegations were denied by the prosecutors in charge in different cities. But as usual, these denials were denied by the same prosecutors again. So we are living in such a world, and this is the reality of current justice in Turkey and judiciary. So people, most probably this is what happened. The DG for Penitentiary Affairs in Ankara sent an order to all cities to spare some cells, some wards for quarantine in case of need. So most probably the prison administrations, with the order of the prosecution in charge in that city, found such a solution to have an empty quarantine ward. You need to move these people to other wards. So as if they are doing something good, but they are, increasing the risk in this way, yes. Putting 45 people in those hygiene conditions where there's not always running water. There's hot water only 1 day a week, and no sanitary possibilities for women, children, men we are talking about. So this is the mentality, huh?
Yeah, you're inviting them.
And yeah, they don't care, I believe. They don't care. Now they are in a position to have met the requirements of this order coming from Ankara. That's all. They have some empty wards. Nobody cares about these 45 people sleeping in inhumane conditions in those wards. If, apart from this corona outbreak, apart from this health issue, this is inhumane to put people, 45 people in a ward of 7.
No,
so
I mean,
these...
I tried to picture that. How do they sleep? Do they stand?
Yeah.
Are they, because the whole point of, like, we're all trying to physically keep ourselves at a distance, but they're probably like forced shut into a small space.
Yeah. This is unfortunately the reality, but people don't want to see this. That hurts. That hurts because even for me, it's really painful, because I know if I were in Turkey, if I were in their hands, I would be in the same position. And imagine yourself in their shoes. What would you think? There is such a tragedy there, and people just ignores. People just ignore. Or like this Martin Luther King says, there's nothing worse than this conscientious ignorance. That's not only ignoring, they know, but they don't care. But those are lives there. So when you call someone a terrorist, that doesn't make that person a terrorist.
I think...
And even if we are talking about really bloody terrorists, you cannot just put them in such an inhumane condition. If you are a state, if you claim that you are a democracy governed by rule of law, no.
I think there have to be, people probably employ a lot of mental gymnastics to justify what's happening. But I wanted to also talk about the women in prisons, and especially the pregnant women or the women with newborn. What's happening happening to them?
So even according to the official data provided by the Justice Ministry of Turkey, there are more than 700. As of December 2019, they say there were 780 children staying with their moms in prison. So we are talking about children between the age of 0 to 6. So if the woman in prison has a child between or younger than the age of 6, they can have their children in the prison. So, you know, as a lady, you can just imagine this much better than me. I believe no mother wishes to have their children in such conditions in prison in Turkey, even especially in Turkish prisons. You know, I know in some countries like Spain, in Sweden, and Finland, and many others, to name but a few, there are specially designed prisons for moms with their children. So we are not talking about such prisons. Huh? We are talking about extremely overcrowded prisons. And these children are being raised in those wards. They don't even have a separate bed. They are sleeping with their mothers in this tiny prison bed. And they don't have a separate meal. They share their mother's meal.
Oh, so each of them are getting less food.
Yes, yes. And they don't have space to even play. They don't have, even not playing, they don't have the place to walk there. So under which conditions does a mother take her child in a prison like this? Let me tell you, the mothers whose husbands are also arrested or who were just isolated by their families, or who don't have parents or sisters or brothers to take care of their children. So we are talking about only this group of mothers, the number of which amounts to almost 800 now. So the other mothers who have children outside the prison are not in a better mood, I believe. I don't know which would be better, having your child with you under these conditions, or not being able to see your child for years. And for what? Yeah, you know, yeah, and as an ex-judge, I definitely believe in this. Everybody who took part in this treacherous coup attempt should definitely be judged, tried fairly, but fairly. And nobody can say that there is nobody to blame. There is a thing, and there must be someone who did this. So for those who are responsible for this should be tried, should be brought before the justice. But now, in today's Turkey, we cannot talk about justice because even the procedural rules are not applied. No guarantees enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights are just enjoyed. And we don't we cannot speak of an independent and impartial judiciary, especially after the constitutional amendment of 2017. And in all the international reports, institutional, formal, and NGO reports. And as a latest recent example, in the UN's periodic cycle report of 2020, these things have been, voiced for 100 times maybe. But under these circumstances, there is such a side effect also. The government and these people cannot see this. Under these circumstances, they cannot find those who are responsible, those who are guilty. When you blame everyone, as the Turkey reporter of this European Parliament says, if you blame everyone of being terrorist, maybe nobody is terrorist. So we come to this point then you cannot convince anyone that you are punishing those responsible for some wrongdoings also. So this is about the legitimacy of the state, not only about, ruining the lives, but they don't see it or they don't want to see it. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yavuz Aydın.
May I just add one more thing? Because, in this process, we are now talking about this coronavirus, but this injustice in Turkey has already killed hundreds of people. So even only among the judges, my previous colleagues, 5 colleagues of mine died in prison or in their beds in the prison ward of the hospital under arrest, or right after being released. So I don't know the total number among the other groups of inmates, but it's not only the virus. If they do not do what they should do about this release, about this reform package, it will not be the coronavirus to kill these people. It will be this government who will have killed these people. And then they cannot put the blame on the virus. At least I will not buy this.
No, you are right. And you have başını sağ olsun in this matter.
Teşekkür ederim.
All right. Well, stay safe in Brussels, Belgium.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a pleasure and honor for me. Thank you.
Take care.
You can follow Ahval News Online podcast series through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spreaker. All you need to know about Turkey is here, for your ears, mind, and attention. Thank you for listening to our podcast.